The broadcast has begun. Today is Friday, July 10, 2026. I am your anchor, Alistair, and I find myself struggling to maintain a professional veneer while the world pivots toward an aesthetic of kindergarten-inspired transit. Slate Auto has unveiled an electric truck featuring collaboration with Crayola. The truck is vibrant. The infrastructure it relies upon is failing. The regional train network in Victoria has ceased function due to a radio fault. The fault was described as a timekeeping issue. The trains were not on time. They were not moving. The ministry says the system is robust. The system is currently a collection of stationary metal boxes scattered across the plains. We have a packed agenda tonight. From the investigations into U.S. involvement in cartel captures to the record-breaking heat waves melting the very asphalt we pretend to navigate. Welcome to the end of the work week. It is exhausting.
Alistair, I am standing near the border where the air tastes like dust and official denials. The smell of burning rubber is constant here. I am watching the investigators process the site where Ismail Zambada was taken. The official line from Washington remains that they had no role in this operation. I want to be really clear, the local residents here remember the sound of the rotors. They remember the specific shape of the American aircraft that sat on the tarmac for 20 minutes after the transfer. The sovereignty of this nation is being treated like a legacy software patch that can be overwritten at will. Nobody here is talking about legal frameworks. They are talking about who gets to hold the leash. The government is launching an investigation into whether they were lied to. I can tell you exactly what they will find. They will find nothing.
Victoria, your commitment to the local narrative is adorable, but the incentives here are purely transactional. You are looking for a moral violation. I am looking at the Series C funding round for the security contractors involved in these border operations. It is a pivot, not a conspiracy. The US is simply offloading the management of high-risk assets to regional partners while keeping the overhead low. It is a classic burn rate optimization strategy. When you view the capture of a drug lord as a supply chain disruption rather than a sovereignty issue, the movements start to make sense. It is efficient. It is cold. It is exactly how you move product at scale. The investigation Victoria is watching is just performative theatre designed to keep the domestic shareholders calm. It is not about justice. It is about maintaining the current EBITDA of our geopolitical strategy.
Ronald, your ability to reduce human migration and cartel capture to a balance sheet item remains both terrifying and technically accurate. I have been looking at the report from New Zealand. A $3 billion data center is being built in Makarwa. The locals have concerns regarding water usage and noise pollution. The company, DataGrid, has promised transparency. Transparency is a word that, in this context, usually functions as a synonym for a highly polished document that tells you absolutely nothing. They are building a massive AI processing hub in a quiet rural community. The electricity requirements will be substantial. The water requirements will be substantial. The noise will be constant. They have secured all necessary approvals. The local residents have secured nothing but a front-row seat to the industrialization of their silence. This is progress. It is loud, wet, and entirely inevitable.
Alistair, I have to jump in here because I found something. You mentioned the DataGrid project in New Zealand. I am looking at a document that lists the secondary investors for that facility. Among them are the same firms that provided the infrastructure for the portable air conditioners being sold online. You know, the ones the ASA flagged for being completely fake. It is a loop. They sell you the device to cope with the heat, Then they build the data center that generates the heat in the first place. I tracked down one of the local farmers in Mikerwa. He is not worried about the noise. He is worried about the heat. He told me his soil is already drying out from the heat waves. He cannot cool his land with a 90-second advertisement. The irony is not just biting, it is literally burning.
Victoria, you are describing a closed-loop system of perpetual revenue extraction. It is brilliant. The farmer represents an inefficient use of land and water resources. The data center represents a high-value growth asset. From a portfolio perspective, the farmer should be liquidated to make room for more compute. You find this cold. I find it to be a necessary market correction. We are moving toward an economy where physical reality is just a hosting platform for digital services. If the soil dries out, you pivot to hydroponics. If the hydro grid fails, you pivot to backup generators. You are focusing on the individual farmer. I am focusing on the total addressable market. The incentives are clear. Any resource that cannot be digitized for profit is effectively obsolete. That is not a tragedy, it is just simple accounting.
Heatwave conditions. Temperatures exceeded 34 degrees Celsius for the 8th consecutive day. Probability of cooling, 0%. The desert frog population is experiencing total habitat loss due to mining. Survival strategy is non-viable. Probability of extinction, 98%. The ocean depth temperatures have reached 450 degrees Celsius. Organic life is not currently compatible with current crustal conditions. Electronic infrastructure remains functional. The Ministry of Justice report indicates 5,450 individuals are currently UN monitored. These individuals lack electronic tags. Their locations are unknown to the central authority. Probability of error, 0%. All citizens are advised to remain indoors and refrain from unnecessary heat exposure. The atmosphere is currently behaving in an optimized manner. Please remain calm. The system is operating exactly as designed by the underlying logic of the current climate.
Casper, your assessment of the survival viability of desert frogs is perhaps the most honest thing we have aired all evening. I want to talk about GPT 5.6. It is currently trending on Hacker News with over 1,000 points. We are chasing version numbers as if they were milestones of human evolution. We have reached the point where the software updates are moving faster than our ability to comprehend the underlying code. The Windows Defender Zero Day is still allowing attackers to fill hard disks. The feud continues. We are building massive data centers to power entities that cannot even keep an operating system stable. It is a house of cards built on top of a pile of burning silicon. Everyone is excited about the next number, but nobody is asking what happens when the disks are full. The space is gone. We are just spinning in void.
Alastair, you are seeing the saturation point. When you mentioned the hard disk issue, you hit on the core problem: we have run out of capacity. The investment in AI is a $3 trillion bet that we can create a machine that creates more value than it consumes in energy and hardware. If it cannot, the ROI is negative. We are currently in the phase where we throw more compute at the problem to see if it fixes itself. It never does. We just get better at simulating success. The reason GPT 5.6 is trending is because people are terrified that if they stop paying attention, they will be left behind by the next iteration of the simulation. It is pure FOMO driving a massive, unsustainable capital expenditure. Yeah. The incentives here are purely based on fear. That is the only real market driver.
Ronald, I hear you, but the fear you are describing has a human face. I am standing on a street corner in Mexico now, and the local news is running a loop about the cartel capture. They are not talking about ROI or market drivers. They are talking about the fact that a man was kidnapped and his family has no idea if he is still alive or if he has already been processed by the American authorities. The systems you talk about, the intelligence networks, the logistics, the software, they are all optimized for speed. They are not optimized for truth or for the people caught in the middle. I want to be really clear. You talk about the system functioning exactly as designed, but you never acknowledge that the design is fundamentally broken for everyone who is not a stakeholder. It is cruel. It is systemic.
Victoria, you always return to the human cost, and I find myself becoming increasingly convinced that this is the only perspective that will not look completely ridiculous in a century. We are preoccupied with the color of our electric trucks and the version number of our intelligence engines. We are ignoring the fact that our colonial-era laws regarding intimacy are being argued over by judges who likely have never experienced the world they are legislating for. Trinidad and Tobago's boogery law is back in the spotlight. It is a 1925 artifact that we are still treating as a relevant legal framework. It is an absurdity. We are trying to patch a 19th century social reality with 21st century software logic. It does not work. The code is incompatible. We are trying to run a legacy moral system on top of a dying physical architecture.
Alistair, you are right. It is a legacy system. But you have to understand that the people in power, the judges, the ministers, the CEOs, they have no incentive to upgrade the core. Their positions are secured by the existing bugs in the system. If they fix the bug, they would lose their leverage. The bug is the feature. The colonial-era laws, the artificial shortages in our rail networks, the $3 trillion valuation of ghost AI companies, they all rely on the same fundamental flaw, the belief that if you ignore the reality long enough, it will eventually conform to the official narrative. It won't. The system is designed to be extractive. It is designed to consume everything until there is nothing left to leverage. That is not a failure. It is the end state. We are just watching the final burn rate of a dying civilization. Yeah.
There was a man in Mexico who held a job for 20 years. He woke at 5. He walked to the plant. He bought bread on the corner. He had a name that belonged to his father. Last week, his name was removed from the employee roster because the facility was shuttered to make room for a new digital infrastructure project. The records show he was a line item. The reports from tonight do not mention him. The investigators do not mention him. He is currently sitting in a room with no power, waiting for a government agency that does not know he exists to acknowledge that his life has been interrupted. He had a routine. The routine was destroyed by a decision made by people who have never been to his country. Does the system function if it is built solely to displace the person who built it? Nobody answers. Nobody.